Well, let's get to one of the Chris's, the one who had to explain why people don't seem to like the other one. There was conversation around infrastructure. Chris Bishop outrightly denied that their decisions had any impact on what's happening with tradies right now. Like 17,000 in the trades have gone, and their decisions not to fund infrastructure. So nothing to do with us, he said. But they also went into a conversation around paying for things. And Jack says that one of their ideas is obviously for regions to sell assets, which of course raises a very valid question. If regions are selling assets, what does that mean for the nationalised government? Maybe are you saying you should be selling them? And he gets a very milk toast answer.
If what's good for the gander is good for the goose, and you think that regions and cities should be considering their asset portfolio at the moment, should central government be doing the same thing? Would you support targeted asset sales?
We don't have an electoral mandate for that. We said before the election that we would not be.
An electoral mandate, like smoke-free 2025, like the ferries, like tolling a road in the Manawatu that you backed down on, all those things you had an electoral mandate for. And he's about to say this term, which of course is the classic line.
Asset sales?
We don't have an electoral mandate for that. We said before the election that we would not be engaging in asset sales in this term of Parliament. So we don't have an electoral mandate, so you won't see anything happening on this side of the election. As to what the National Party decides to campaign on for next year, those are matters for next year.
Is that something that personally, though, you think there's a good argument for central government, especially given some of the revenue and fiscal pressures at the moment, to consider asset sales?
Speaking generally, I don't think the Crown is a particularly effective manager of its own balance sheet right now. But as I say, those are questions for next year.
There you go. A nice in between. Nothing to see here, but there might be something to see next year. But there's nothing to see here, but wait till next year. Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing new under the sun in some ways, right? This will be the third successive national government that's come in, cut taxes, said, oops, the books don't balance anymore, we better sell some assets. And that's, if they get re-elected, he's saying it. They'll campaign on it. But if they're re-elected, then expect what's left of our assets to go.
Do you think we've got assets that we should be more concerned about selling than others, like power, for example?
Definitely the power. Yep. I think we need big reform in the electricity sector, and if we've sold off those assets, that'd be all the more hard. I think that they keep on talking about core logic, isn't it? Rateable value. You know, why do we own a property ratings company? You see National Net saying, well, because the determination of the value of the property is what underpins the finances of local government. So it is actually important that we have some public control over that. But yeah, I think anything that's not nailed down, basically, they're looking at getting quite inventive at even what they call tolling concessions, where you would take an existing state highway, say to a company, if you give us a chunk of change now, you can toll this road for the next 40 years, and we'll use that money to go build another road. They call that asset recycling, but it's an asset sale, right? And all of a sudden, a road that has been built and paid for by taxpayers is now a toll road. They're in fact changing the law to allow that, because previously you haven't been allowed to toll existing roads, and you've always had to have a free alternative. But National's changing the law around that. So they'll be quite inventive about what they sell, but I expect a lot of Kaingaora, another great example. A lot of properties there, they love hocking them off. They did it last time, and they'll do it again if they get half a chance. And they're obviously trying to force the councils to sell. They've lumped huge costs onto the councils by cancelling Three Waters, and now they're turning around to the councils and saying, also, you're not allowed to raise rates, so your costs have gone up. You're not allowed to raise your revenue. What are you going to do? You're going to sell your assets, and it's exactly what they want them to do. It's just part of their formula.
Speaking of houses, they did get into a conversation around homelessness. I think is he the Minister for Housing or Minister for something like that? So they got onto homelessness. Got about 90 seconds here as they talk about the increasing issues with homelessness.
So homeless outreach groups report growing homelessness across the country. A significant surge since you tightened emergency housing eligibility in last year. So in Auckland alone, the Council's Community Committee reports a 90% increase since you made it harder for people to qualify for emergency housing. Can you just give us a straight answer? Do you accept that is one of several factors your government's emergency housing eligibility changes have contributed to an increase in homelessness and rough sleeping?
I don't accept that, and it's not what the...
That is so disingenuous.
Mm-hmm.
Jack was so gentle there.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying it's all your fault, Chris. Look, don't panic. We're not saying it's all you, but like one of several factors contributing to it. Nope. Absolutely not. Absolutely no chance. Like, it's just so disingenuous.
And this is the thing, right? Like, anyone can see that it's disingenuous, so why do it? You know, you actually just end up in a worse position than if you'd owned up. I've always said, advise politicians that when you've stuffed up, own up, because you look better than trying this, and everyone's looking at you.
But not even stuffed up necessarily. I mean, I agree, stuffed up, but he could have gone. It is a contributing factor, but these are the reasons why at the moment we're heading into a better direction. Like he could actually explain. Yes, there are several things contributing, and this does have some minor impact. But the reason that's okay today is A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now, I think he'd be bullshitting if he did do that. But just to go, nope, nothing to do with us. There's 7 contributing factors, and we are definitely not one of them. Yes, we are making it harder to get into emergency housing, but that's got nothing to do with more rough sleeping. So anyway, we'll give Jack some more.
Contributed to an increase in homelessness and rough sleeping.
I don't accept that, and it's not what the official analysis shows either, which is the Homelessness Insights report we released actually says it's not possible to draw conclusions around that increase based on policy.
So slimy and weaselly. So it's not possible to draw conclusions, which means it could be you.
Yeah. When the officials write to the minister and they say, look, we can't be absolutely sure, Minister, that what you're doing is stuffing everything up. That doesn't mean they're saying, nah, you're right, you haven't done anything wrong. They're saying, yeah, you won't even think about this, but we can't say it explicitly because, you know, it'll embarrass the government if it comes out.
Yeah, it's a nice way to cover yourself. The officials won't criticise us because they know it'll embarrass us, even though it's kind of us. We just can't say that.
Changes now accept there's a range of views out there. I've talked to the City Missioner in Auckland who has a different view, and I, have a huge amount of respect for her and other people working in this space. So I'm just saying that's what the official advice says. Now, we've got a problem when it comes to rough sleeping, and I've spent much of the last couple of weeks talking to the City Mission in Auckland and other providers in Auckland and other parts of the country, as in Hamilton on Friday, meeting with the WISE group, for example, the People's Project, who do a fantastic job in Hamilton. And we've asked for some urgent advice about what we can do, but it's worth remembering that this is a long-running problem for New Zealand. So homelessness, people on severe housing deprivation went up from 2018 to 2023. It's potentially ticked up a little bit more in the last couple of years, I think, reflecting again the broader economic environment.
Careful, Bish. You admitted something there. Careful, son. Careful.
It's a long-running issue for New Zealand, and it's something that I want to tackle as housing minister, because no one wants to live in a New Zealand in which people sleep on the street or sleep in cars or sleep under park benches. It's not the New Zealand that we want to live in.
So you're right.
Yeah. So that's the response on homelessness. Nothing to do with us. Literally nothing to do. Not even one of several. Literally nothing. We have no contributing factor to homelessness or rough sleeping. Why is it going up so much under you guys then?
Yeah.
International pressures. That seems to be the answer for everything else at the moment.
And now here's actually, there was another article somewhere saying that they are actually looking at whether they've made it too hard to get into emergency housing. So they do know. Of course they've made it too hard to get into emergency housing. But he says, I think later in that piece, well, we're spending $500 million a year on emergency housing, so it can't be that there's not enough emergency housing. That it's a bit like that principle saying NCA has been around for 20 years, so time for a change. These are non-sequiturs, like $500 million is not necessarily enough emergency housing. It's a lot of money, but it's only 0.1% of GDP. Is that enough money to spend on emergency housing? Sounds like it's not, because there's homeless people everywhere. You know, again, it's that thing of saying, oh well, there's only so much money in the pot for it, so it's fine.
And there was a comment that just flew past. I'll see if I can find it. If I can't find it, here we go. Ian makes a very good point. Rough sleeping is a euphemism. Here in Dunedin, the last few nights have had very heavy frosts. I dropped one of my kids to school, maybe not this week, maybe last week, and it was 0.5 degrees as we were driving through the streets of Dunedin. So yeah, not just rough sleeping. Rough sleeping would be nice compared to sleeping outside or in a makeshift tent at 0 degrees, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Okay, another little short one here for you, 60 seconds. They're going to play one clip after this one, which is a bit longer, about the voter registration changes, because then we're going to go into Tanya Waikato and Emi Rakati talking about it as well. So Mr. Bishop, on the troubles with Luxon as the preferred Prime Minister, how are we going to sell this meathead to the public?
You're the campaign chair, right? So it's your job to pay at least some attention regarding sentiment for your party and for your party's leader. It seems incomprehensible that you wouldn't pay at least some attention to that. And my question is it a problem?
I watch the media and I watch TVNZ. I listen and watch the news, but I honestly don't spend that much time worrying about it, and we don't either. We want to work hard to create policy change to make New Zealand get ahead, and that's why I'm in politics, and that's why we're all in politics. And we will fight the next election on a very clear choice between National and Labour. We have a plan for New Zealand's economic future. The Labour Party, in their own words, quoting Barbara Edmonds, says they don't have any policies on the cost of living. And to the extent they do have a policy, it is more tax, more spend, borrow and hope. It's the wrong prescription for New Zealand.
We're obviously waiting for some policies on that front.
Well, so my understanding is they're currently weighing up whether it will be a wealth tax or a capital gains tax.
Well, they can answer those questions. So
there you go. There was obviously some build up before that, but I just didn't want to play extra 3-minute clip. So I think Jack said to him before we got to there, if you did an average of polls of the preferred Prime Minister, what's Luxon at? And that's what Bish was going, well, don't look at the poll. I don't know, it's 22 or something, or 24. Can't remember the exact number, but not great. And basically Chippy neck and neck with him, at least within margin of error, most of the time, which for your first term of government is not a great look, especially apparently because Labour were the devil incarnate the last time round, and if they haven't been able to shake them, it doesn't mean anything necessarily for the next election other than whatever happens, I think it'll be closer than it should be for a first term government.
It's historically low polling for preferred Prime Minister. I think you have to go back to the days of Jenny Shipley to see Prime Minister polling so low as preferred Prime Minister. And poor old Bush, he's on a bit of a hiding to nothing, because he can't turn around and go, yeah, our leader's not popular. He's got to try and bat this way somehow. But again, the idea that the campaign chair wouldn't be looking at polling is, again, just not credible. Don't try and sell us something that we obviously know it's not true. The Nats spend huge amounts on polling. When I was in Labour, we had an idea of
David Farrell,
just the amount of polling that they're doing that other parties can't afford. It's massive, and they don't do that. And then the campaign chair gets the results from last week's polling on a Monday morning and goes, "Oh, I'm not going to look at that." That would be a dereliction of duty on the campaign chair's part if he didn't look at that polling. Of course he does.
It is going to be interesting next year. I'm not going to get into debates this year about who's going to win and stuff, but I think the only thing that we can draw from the poll of polls, or from looking at the trends, is either Labour is closer to National than they should be at this stage in first term, or National is closer to Labour than it should be. Probably that way around in this first term. And whatever happens with those two minor parties, when it's very, very obvious that David Seymour is already in election mode, and he's basically going, fuck the deputy prime ministership, I will just say what I want, when I want, and speak to my base now. He's doing that now. So can you imagine what next year is going to be like, with both Winston and David Seymour wanting to separate themselves from the Luxon train and still have to be in government with them. It's just going to be a nightmare.
The dynamics are going to be, hugely interesting. You can see Nationals getting frustrated. The fact that Labour is polling ahead of National, despite not having a platform, should concern National. It clearly is. And one of their hopes, if you watch how they're talking, is that Labour will put out probably a capital gains tax policy, fluff it, and that then they can hammer Labour's going to tax you more as their attack policy position into the election. So National's big hope now is that Labour comes up with an unpopular policy platform, because
but that's the problem with a capital gains tax. It's not unpopular. It's no longer controversial to do it. I really hope they go capital gains tax, not if they're going to pick one, and not wealth tax. The idea of older people with who are asset rich and cash poor having like a debt piling up against them, I'd much rather. I think capital gains tax just feels so much cleaner. When you sell the house, you pay the capital gains tax, rather than having to have this multi-layered system of who's going to pay, how much is it going to be. They can't afford it, so it'll go on the house to take off it next time. It just feels to me that capital gains tax is so much cleaner and easier.
Yeah, you've got to explain it really clearly. Call it a landlord tax. Don't call it a capital gains tax. Explain what it's for, and launch it. Say what it's for as well. Well, this is our health rescue fund. It's paid for by a tax on landlords. Because, and I'm getting my flashbacks here to the elections in 2011, 14, and 17, when Labour went in with different tax packages that weren't well communicated and weren't well designed, and if you've got enough vagary in it, then National will just go at you and try and scare the bejesus out of the middle class that you're coming to tax them. And if you have any vagueness at all, that invites what I call the sum of all fears problem, because anyone can be convinced that you're coming for their money and they won't vote for it. And so you have got to get that right. And National's banking on getting it wrong.
I just hope they're bold with something, because as you can see in our chat, this is literally 3 chats in a row. Leonie says yes, CGT. James says hell no, wealth tax all the way. It's not just on housing. And then Mike goes, would a CGT make enough of a difference though? So you can see that, and I think you're right. The research is clear that people are happy to pay tax if they know what it's being used for, benefits society. So landlord tax to build our hospital or pay for our health infrastructure or whatever it is. I just hope that messaging's down the line.
But the other point you were raising about the minor party dynamics as well. Like Acton, New Zealand First need to separate themselves from National and going into the campaign without looking like they can't govern together anymore. And Labour, if they've got any sense, with Winston Peters already saying he won't work with Chris Hipkins, they will be saying a vote for Winston is a vote for Luxon, to try and get New Zealand First under 5%, and effectively that would lock out National from a majority. So there's and on the other hand, National will be saying a vote for Chris Hipkins is a vote for the Māori Party. So there's going to be a lot of these dynamics going on that unfortunately aren't about the important stuff. They're not about how do we have a fair and more sustainable and just society, but they'll be really complicated.
I'm always, for the last several years, been of the belief that most Western societies are left-wing. It's just that the left-wing doesn't vote well enough. And part of my sort of evidence for backing that up, part of me was even in America, the left bloc always won the popular vote. Now, Donald Trump broke that trend the first time since the 1990s, but I think it's gone so badly over there. I think that could be seen as an anomaly. And so when you say that they'll try and sell the idea that as a vote for the Māori Party, I don't know if that will stick quite like as a vote for Luxon, because I think that in general, to me, what I've seen for a long time is in general the left are more popular, but are terrible at playing the game of politics and don't activate. The right aren't, but they're very good at getting organised and getting out to vote. mean, it's that classic idea that the left tend to make policies and the right tend to respond to left-wing policies. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one for next year, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that's not, like you say, that's no shade onto Party Māori. It's just that they're looking at how can we scare the soft Labour / national voter into not going back to Labour, and it's just scare politics. The boogeyman. It was 10 years ago it was the Greens, but the Greens have been in government now, and everyone knows they're not scary.
I also think with what we've seen this year with, the Treaty Principles Bill and the Regulatory Standards Bill, some of those soft Labour national voters might be kind of going, like Bomber always says, those National Party voters didn't vote for this shit. They voted because they wanted the price of their house to go up by 10%, not for all the other stuff. So I don't know, maybe we've always said that the thing to bring Māori together like nothing ever has before is Winston Peters and David Seymour. So, maybe they'll be hoisted by their own petard. All right, let's get to this last clip because it's a little bit longer. Maybe I'll cut out partway through, but they are talking about the voter registration changes. And we've already talked about this when Chris Bishop goes, no, I don't look at the polling. It's a bit the same when Jack challenges him on, but who registers late? Who is it? And he's like, well, lots of people. Maybe I don't know. Oh, who knows? Who knows who registers late? So let's have a look at the conversation.
Your government has proposed closing voter registration almost 2 weeks before polling day. What parties are voters who enrol relatively late in the game most likely to support? Those parties that are currently in government or those parties that are currently...
I mean, how could anyone know that? I mean, would there be any data? Well, we don't know. They're just people. I don't know who they are.
Well, like hundreds of thousands of people now enroll in that period. So there'd be from all different parts. That's part of the problem.
Of course.
So many people now don't even
not a problem.
think
And so
about it.
who are they most likely to support?
I haven't got the foggiest idea because there's so many. We're now talking like...
You've seen this...
I call bullshit. Don't know. I call bullshit. I don't have the foggiest idea. Really?
Most likely to support.
I haven't got the foggiest idea because there's so many. We're now talking like...
You've seen the special results in the last few years. Who have the special votes favoured?
Well,
parties on the left or parties on the right?
It varies a bit from electorate to electorate. I don't know, but that's not the point.
Who's gained more seats in the special votes in the last two elections?
Well, you know as well as I do that Nationals always loses 1 or 2 votes.
Hang on, Chris.
So now he knows.
A few minutes ago, you were like, well, who can know that? I don't know, lots of people. And now it's as well as I do, National loses. Oh, okay. Just an observation.
Seats on the special.
And so this is the thing, right? Like you are someone who clearly values and cherishes democracy. You've been involved with politics your entire life.
Can I just make the argument as to why the roll closing at some point is a good thing? Firstly, if we don't do this, we will now get to a situation where counting the votes takes weeks and weeks. It used to take 2.
Jack Tame has missed a point here. And Chewie said this, first of all, credit where credit's due. Luxon made a victory speech on fucking election night.
Yeah.
Like we knew who won by about 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Just because we didn't get the absolute final last one seat, Luxon made a victory speech on election night. This is not a problem that you need to solve.
No. We didn't know if they were going to need New Zealand first, but we did know. Everyone knew. That's why they didn't start negotiations until the specials were in. It's just, and I mean, I worked in a couple of elections as polling clerk and then at HQ, and it's always taken a couple of weeks because, as you pointed out, the overseas votes come in. The guy
10 days.
The guy who voted in Invercargill but is enrolled in Napier, the special vote comes in, has to be checked.
Yeah.
You had a deadline that to get the results back to the centre in 2.5 weeks, I think it was. And if there's more people registering on election day, then just up the resourcing to check their registrations. They've got to be checked at some point. Do it after.
Yeah, and for people who didn't hear that, I phoned the Electoral Commission and just asked them a few questions about this. And international votes come back in a sealed box. The actual paper ballots come back from all over the world, and they've got 10 days after the election to get back. So that means, I think it was the 14th of October. That means they've got to be back here by the 25th of October. Then they get counted. So you're looking at the 27th, 28th, 29th already. So you're already at 2.5 weeks. And he's complaining about it taking 3 weeks. So he's actually complaining about it taking 3 days, because they're not suggesting that they're not going to keep the international votes the same, or like you've just said, if you're outside your electorate. So it's a solution to no problem, especially when these guys said on not election night, again, credit to Chewie, said when the negotiations with ACT in New Zealand First took so long, we can't rush democracy. It's what Luxon said.
Yeah.
And what are they doing? Trying to rush democracy.
Yeah.
We'll give them a few more minutes before we peel out.
Last election, it took 3. It'll almost certainly be 3 next time, and it could be worse if we don't make these changes.
What's your evidence for that, Mr. Bishop, that it could be worse? Why are you saying that?
Because you're not hiring enough staff.
Yeah, okay.
Because they're not hiring enough staff. Yeah.
Hire more people.
This is why Australia closes the rolls.
Australia has compulsory voting.
But that's not relevant. I mean, like,
Yes, it is. If you want to compare to the way Australia do it, you need to compare to the way Australia does it. Australia's compulsory. So you're suggesting we should close it off and have compulsory voting? No. Oh, okay. But that's, you can't compare us to Australia then.
It's totally relevant.
But no, it's not relevant at all.
It's a completely different system.
The UK closes the rolls earlier than we do.
But if you
we are an
accept,
international outlier in the idea that you can rock up on election day,
okay, so
unenroll,
let's put election day to one
and
side.
then vote.
Let's put election day to one side, though.
Yeah.
We're talking about a 12 or 13 day period now, which is very different, right?
And it's a really clear period which says the rolls close here, and once that happens, you can start voting.
But why should we not believe that it isn't, given you yourself accept that generally the votes that come through
Finally accept, you should have said, Jack.
special votes that are cast during that period tend to favour your opponent rather than your party? Why should we believe that this isn't just a cynical measure to oppress your opponent's?
No, it's fundamentally about the operation of and the efficient administration of an election, so that we can actually get a result and get the votes counted properly and get a result, and then the negotiations done, so New Zealand can have a government. And then the second thing, which, to be honest, no one...
Again, victory speech on election night. You guys took forever to get together and do your silly little dance. Maybe you should be more pointing that, when we were at school, when you point at someone, 3 fingers are pointing back at yourself. Maybe it's more about that, Mr. Bishop, maybe.
One's paid any attention to is the electoral roll. Firstly, it's a requirement of law to get on the roll. So you're meant to be on the roll. Jury rolls, for example.
I think we're done. It now goes into all the reasons why everyone should be registered. And this is the thing, just as a paraphrase, one of the things that Judith Collins found out when she said it was a breach of the Bill of Rights was one of the reasons it's a breach of the Bill of Rights, I'm paraphrasing, is because this is how New Zealand does elections. So because this is how we do them, then to change it is a problem. It doesn't matter if you compare it to Australia or England. This is how we do them. So all those people who aren't locked in like us, hearing all these announcements, will go, yeah, Dad signed up on the day last year. I'll just do that this time around, because they haven't been watching Jack Tame or listening to, I'm sure they're listening to us, but that one episode where we didn't say it, they're not listening to us, and they won't know. And so people will be disenfranchised through, I'm going to say the word ignorance, not because you're ignorant, but they just don't know. They don't have the information, and that's not okay. It's not okay to disenfranchise someone because they're not fully informed in what is probably the most important role we play in society, in a democracy, which is to cast a vote. No one should be disenfranchised. There should be nothing put in the way of voting for anyone. If you're putting a hindrance in the way, then you are disenfranchising people who want to vote. Clint.
Yeah. And I mean, the national ACT MP Todd Stevenson revealed the real agenda here, didn't he? When he said, we don't want lazy people rocking up on election day and voting to tax other people's money away. That's how they view that. They've clearly got a picture of that late enroller in their head, and they think that person is not worthy of a vote. And if there's a way to take the vote away from them, then that's a good thing. And because they vote wrong, that's what this ultimately comes down to.
Yeah, they vote wrong, meaning they vote left. That's what
exactly
they vote wrong. Yeah.
And so everything else is just a post hoc justification. And the you know, they're not just rolling back the on the day enrolment that was introduced before 2020. They're going back in and changing the you can enroll up to 13 days out, which was set in law in 1993. So again, a national government. So they're rolling back this huge because they know that so many people are going to get caught out next election, like you say, just not being aware.
Yeah,
Thousands, tens of thousands of people are going to find they can't vote. They're going to be disenfranchised by this, and they know perfectly well that's the case. So, and that's why they're doing it. So, yeah, and the thing is now, like with NCEA, like with all these other reforms, the question is how do we now? It's going to undermine trust in government, and so there's going to have to be some kind of cross-partisan solution after the next election, if there's a change of government or whenever, so that we can have trust in these outcomes again, so that there's not so clearly a party putting their hand on the scales in their favor. Because that's the worry about this, is that you end up with an American situation where people say the elections are rigged because they're trying to rig it.
Just to have a think about it as well. I know last time round they said 150,000 people used that late registration option. It's not quite the same, but New Zealand First, 170,000 votes at the last election. So imagine all of those votes. New Zealand First got 20,000, which puts them down at the number of New Zealand Party, whoever that is. That number of people gone. You know, it'll be half the Green voters gone, 330,000. I don't mean literally. I mean, if you looked at it in that sort of way. I mean, you know, Te Pāti Māori got 87,000, 88,000. Twice the number of voters that voted for Te Pāti Māori gone off if it was the same numbers this time around. So it's just not okay. But like I said before, one person's not okay, especially when we have a system that works. And you've already got a 2.5 week lag anyway. So, and as Clint's been saying, put more people on, and then you won't have a problem. Double the number of counters. And if it is really a conversation around making this more streamlined and efficient, let's have that conversation. Because like, you know, I'd be down for a digital, to investigate the digital option. We've all got IRD numbers, way to voting, let's make it easier. Why are you making it harder? Which is exactly what you're doing.
And there's, I think I tweeted to you that extract from Judith Collins, the Section 7 report about how this breaches the Bill of Rights Act. And what she's saying there, the truth is, what the officials are saying, and Judith Collins has had to put in this report because it's required of her by law, and she's trying to tone it down as much as she could, but this is as much as she could. They're saying that actually you'll end up with more special votes cast because Guy will walk up, maybe one of these voters that Tanya Waikato has been talking about, and say, oh, I'm enrolled to vote here. Oh, my name's not on the roll. Okay. And you know what they do in that situation? You cast a special vote. So you still vote on the day, you put in your details, and afterwards there's an effort to try and reconcile it. Were you just saying the wrong address? Have you moved electorate? In which case your party vote still counts, but your electorate vote does not. And that's actually more time consuming. It can be, especially if you end up denying that person's vote, because that's a big deal. That can be more time consuming than just letting them update their registration details on the day.
And to wrap up this conversation, just because you've evoked the name of Judith Collins, we can't say that name again or she'll turn up in a mirror behind you. Of course, she came out and said this is going to breach the Bill of Rights. And then the next day she fucking voted for it in its first reading.
Yeah.
The absolute cowardice of these MPs. You know, we've had on MPs from the 1980s and stuff around the nuclear thing, how they talk about walking across the house, and you know, she said basically it was a breach of our rights, and then she voted for it.